Finn Balor once again attacks Seth freaking Rollins after defending his World Heavyweight Championship against Bron Breakker on this week's edition of NXT. Raw Underground, remember that? Well, it's going to be returning to a future NXT match. Details on that. Plus, we have the ratings for last Friday's episode of SmackDown on Fox. Gable Steveson makes a cameo on last night's edition of NXT. Wagner finally reveals the mystery surrounding his character on last night's episode. Fastlane has been announced to be returning later on this year. An NXT Tag Team Championship match has been announced for next week's show. Mustafa Ali had controversy as the referee for the NXT North American Championship match last night. A future WWE Undisputed Tag Team Championship match and feud has possibly been revealed. Nathan Frazer is set to defend his NXT Heritage Cup against a challenger next week, and Dakota Kai gives an update on her injury recovery. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of World Wrestling Entertainment. Let's start off talking about Finn Balor once again attacking Seth Rollins. The rivalry between Seth Rollins and Finn Balor has blown over from Monday Night Raw to NXT on Tuesday nights, after Rollins successfully defended the WWE World Heavyweight Championship against former NXT champion Bron Breakker during week 1 of the NXT Gold Rush special. Rollins didn't get much time to celebrate as Balor came out and viciously attacked him. It was their second attack this week, although this time NXT champion Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams came out to save Rollins. The attack also marked Balor's return to the developmental brand. The last time that the Judgment Day member was on NXT was in 2021. His last match was against then NXT champion Karrion Kross on the May 25th, 2021 episode. A month before that, Kross had won the title from Balor, who held it for a total of 212 days. In just a few weeks' time, Rollins will be defending the title against Balor at WWE's Money in the Bank event in London, England's O2 Arena. The match was made official on the June 12 episode of Raw after Rollins agreed to it. A week before that, on June 5th, Rollins defended the title against another Judgment Day member in Damian Priest. Balor inadvertently cost Priest the title match after he was asked not to interfere. In the end, Priest will be part of the men's Money in the Bank ladder match, where if he wins, he gets a future championship opportunity. Now, it wasn't just in the match against Bron Breakker that Seth Rollins appeared last night, because Seth Rollins appeared in a backstage segment touted by WWE on social media as the past, future and present of WWE NXT. Getting the nod from his trainer in a backstage segment, Seth Rollins met up with Nathan Frazer, with Rollins lightly ribbing him about having to carry around the very heavy Heritage Cup. He also took time to tell Frazer he was proud of him, reminding him not to forget to pass wisdom along. Rollins was also next met by Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams, sharing screen times with Rollins. At first, it seems as though they were set to have a contemptuous interaction, but quite the contrary. With Seth Rollins showcasing his signature cackle, he lightened the mood between the trio, and they ended up sharing mutual respect, with Rollins being complimentary of Hayes. So certainly, it could be seen as a past, present, and future of NXT, with Frazer, Carmelo Hayes, and Rollins all appearing in the same segment. Now, on the episode of Raw this week, WWE had advertised that the World Heavyweight Champion Seth Rollins was set to appear on the Pat McAfee show this week. Now, Rollins' appearance was set to take place yesterday on June 20th, but the champion was ultimately pulled from the show, instead being replaced by the wise man himself, Paul Heyman. During his appearance, Heyman officially announced the date and location for the Fastlane Premium Live event, which we'll get into later on in the show. But taking to Twitter after the show, Rollins reacted to Heyman taking his place on the show, as well as revealing that he couldn't appear on the show due to being stuck in the air on his way to Orlando. He said, quote, "Oh, bless you boys for having to deal with that buffoon. Got stuck in the air because Florida is a perpetual monsoon. I owe you one. Luckily, I'm finally in Orlando and the World Heavyweight Championship will be on the line on NXT tonight." Of course it was. He defended it successfully against Bron Breakker in the main event. So a bit of an update if you wondered why wasn't Rollins on the Pat McAfee show yesterday, considering they advertised it during Raw on Monday. Now, I don't think anyone kind of saw this one coming. Raw Underground is coming back. What's old is new again. On the latest episode of NXT, Damon Kemp challenged Eddie Thorpe to a rematch after Thorpe got a win over Kemp on NXT 2 weeks ago. Thorpe agreed, but then Kemp promised that he would be bringing Raw Underground to NXT, referencing the short-lived wrestling MMA hybrid presentation that used to be part of the third hour of Monday Night Raw during the pandemic. Thorpe was later visited backstage by a special guest. We'll talk about that in just a second, but there's no word whether this guest is going to be actually involved in it. Now, if you're not familiar, and you might not have been because blink and you would have missed Raw Underground in WWE, but the Raw Underground match will happen in 2 weeks on NXT. It appears that the stipulation will mean victory can be achieved only by knockout or submission, and the ring ropes will be taken down. The format is a spin on the popular independent wrestling event Josh Barnett's Bloodsport, which is run in conjunction with Game Changer Wrestling. Now, Raw Underground debuted in early August 2020 and ran until late September, with the segment labelled officially dead in December of that year, as it became trickier to keep contracted talents and extras and superstars separate in a way that would comply with COVID-19 policies at the time. Now, the segment itself was hosted by Shane McMahon, and it was kind of a pseudo fight club. It appeared to take place in the basement of the WWE Thunderdome and was a showcase for wrestlers such as Dabba-Kato and Arturo Ruas. There's no word on whether Shane McMahon will return for NXT's version of Raw Underground, nor whether NXT will continue to use the Raw branding as for the stipulation. It did take place at the Performance Center as well, which would probably make sense for why they're going to do it once again, considering that's where NXT is taped out of. So, what are your thoughts on Raw Underground returning and maybe becoming NXT Underground? Did you like Raw Underground? Did it have potential if done correctly? Was it just a situation that the pandemic prevented it from being a success? What are your thoughts? And what are your thoughts that it could be coming back, or it is coming back as part of the developmental brand? Let's talk about the ratings for SmackDown last Friday, and the viewership numbers continue to impress for SmackDown on Fox. Per Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics, SmackDown drew 2.430 million viewers. This is up from the June 9 edition that drew 2.278 million viewers. In the 18 to 49 demographic, Friday's show scored a 0.67 rating. This is also up from the week prior that scored a 0.60 rating. WWE ranked number 1 among broadcast primetime and on cable in the demo for the night. Again, WWE dominating Friday nights really when it comes to television in prime time. The show featured Jey Uso choosing his brother Jimmy over Roman Reigns and the Bloodline, and Pretty Deadly won a tag team gauntlet to become the number 1 contenders for Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn's undisputed WWE Tag Team Championships. Also, Bianca Belair confronted Charlotte Flair during the Grayson Waller effect, where she called out the Queen for skipping the line for a shot at Asuka's WWE Women's Championship. So, really, really strong numbers once again for SmackDown on Fox, and it just goes to show the Bloodline is drawing a very, very strong audience to the network for the show. Now, Gable Steveson, we spoke about Raw Underground. Well, Gable Steveson could be a part of it. Amid all the uncertainty surrounding Gable Stevenson's future in pro wrestling, the former Olympic gold medalist made a surprise appearance on Tuesday's WWE NXT, showing up in a backstage segment and offering to train Eddie Thorpe for his Raw Underground match against Damon Kemp, who is actually Stevenson's real-life brother. Steveson appeared in a locker room full of NXT stars who were stunned to lay eyes on the amateur wrestling phenom. "Hey, Eddie, you could use a trainer for your underground fight in a few weeks," Steveson told Thorpe. "If anyone knows Damon, it's me. Let me know if you need something." The segment ended with Thorpe and Steveson shaking hands. While WWE is yet to confirm Stevenson's involvement in the match, the Raw Underground bout between Kemp and Thorpe, as I mentioned, is set for the July 4th episode of NXT. Now, earlier this week, a report from Flow Wrestling suggested that Steveson was interested in a return to NCAA wrestling following his return to freestyle wrestling at the US Open and Final X this spring. Although Steveson had previously retired from NCAA and Olympic wrestling, he still has 1 year of NCAA eligibility left, meaning his return to the mat in 2024 is a real possibility. Furthermore, Steveson has expressed his desire to capture another gold medal for his country at the 2024 Summer Olympics in Paris, telling MMA Fighting earlier this year that he intends to become one of the best American amateur wrestlers ever and still has a lot more left in the tank with regards to amateur wrestling. According to the Wrestling Observer, Stevenson's return to Olympic stage would be incumbent on WWE clearing him and allowing him to take time off pro wrestling. Before his return on Tuesday, Steveson was last seen on WWE programming on December 9 on the episode of SmackDown, where he celebrated Kurt Angle's birthday by hosing down Alpha Academy with a milk truck. So It's certainly going to be interesting what happens when it comes to Gable Steveson. Now, what's quite interesting as well is actually yesterday, prior to Gable Steveson actually appearing on NXT, Dave Meltzer spoke about him on the Wrestling Observer radio show. And he said, quote, he's got stuff he still wants to do, and now it's a question of WWE clearing him, Meltzer said. Last year, he wanted to come back to University of Minnesota. He's got 1 year of NCAA eligibility left because he wants to become a 3-time heavyweight champion, because there's nobody ever in the United States that's a 3-time heavyweight champion and a gold medalist, and he's already got a gold medal. He would basically have to take time off from pro wrestling and probably the latter part of the year through the Olympics, Meltzer explained. But again, we'll have to wait and see what happens when it comes to it. Now, I come to Meltzer. Steveson has been training in MMA. Meltzer says that Steveson keeps being told that he's very close to being used by WWE. Meltzer says that the company has yet to approve any of Stevenson's extracurricular activities, except for September's Amateur Wrestling World Championship. Meltzer believed that the freak athlete Steveson could dominate this year's World Championships the way he dominated his American amateur competition. He could be, for his age, the greatest heavyweight this country's ever produced, Meltzer said, but for professional wrestling, who knows? So we'll have to wait and see what happens with Gable Steveson, but again, he's very much certainly exploring all of his options right now. Now, we'd spoken about this previously. It was a strange storyline that felt a bit odd, but actually took a really emotional turn last night on NXT. A WWE mystery has finally been solved after one star opened up about his emotional past on this week's edition of NXT Gold Rush, revealing that he was born with a condition that limited brain growth and required surgery to fix. Von Wagner was 15 months old when he had to undergo an over 14-hour-long surgery. Being cut open from ear to ear, doctors didn't even know if he was going to survive. However, the traumatic young experience, he spent a week in intensive care. With the emotional story of how his parents suffered as well, the scarring on his head was bad, and he looked different, but his mother never left his side. Being bullied by other kids at school for those differences, being called a monster, he remembered the other kids' parents staring at him, telling kids not to look at him. With Robert Stone sharing that he has kids, and he could imagine how angry that would make him, Von Wagner was done talking for the day and walked away. Now, free agent Von Wagner continues to add dimension to his on-screen character, and this does resolve the weeks-long mystery of the photo of Wagner undergoing some kind of head surgery as a child that Mr. Stone was trying to get to the bottom of. Wagner would constantly refuse to explain what had happened, but tonight he did. So what are your thoughts on that segment, and does it give you a different perspective on the character of Von Wagner, and is this the most you've really related and sympathized with Von Wagner as a character? Let me know your reaction to the segment in the comment section below. Now, Fastlane is going to be returning to WWE screens this year. The date and location for the 2023 WWE Fastlane Premium Live event has been officially announced. During Paul Heyman's aforementioned appearance on the Pat McAfee show, it was announced that Fastlane would be held in Indianapolis, Indiana on October 7th. This will be the first installment of Fastlane since 2021, which featured Roman Reigns defending the Universal Championship against Daniel Bryan in the main event. This will also be the first installment of the Fastlane event that has not taken place in March, with the event previously being used to signify the road to WrestleMania. Now, last year, WWE Extreme Rules took place on the first weekend of October, with the event seemingly being shelved due to Triple H's attempts to cut back on gimmick events. So events like Hell in a Cell, Extreme Rules, etc., they're being pulled back upon, and we're getting more generic pay-per-view events, or premium live events rather, such as Fastlane, Payback, etc., all returning. So that's certainly very interesting there. Now, as far as details of the how and why behind these announcements, according to Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select, WWE haven't been announcing their premium live event shows as far as years as in years past, and there's reasons for that. Now, Sean Ross Sapp have noted on Fightful shows of late that WWE's desire to create maximum buzz around premium live event shows. For example, up until now, the scheduled shows have fit a few categories: stadium shows, international shows, or directly correlated to major stories. Though WWE recently announced locations and dates for September and October, Fightful asked why it was being done so much closer to the date of the event this year. WWE sources told Fightful they've tried to be as strategic as possible with premium live events, locations, and announcing them. The factors of economics, storyline, audience growth are all weighed when making these decisions. They also told Fightful that by announcing the premium live events individually, it allows each announcement to have its own moment. In 2022, WWE announced all of their premium live events locations and dates well ahead of time. WWE sources told Fightful they've been very happy with how things have played out for them on the PLE shows this year. So there is a bit of a method to the madness when it comes to premium live events and how they've been announced this year as well. Now, we're going to be getting NXT Tag Team title action very soon. New number one contenders for the NXT Tag Team Championships were revealed during this week's episode of NXT's special Gold Rush. Idris Enofe and Malik Blade defeated the tandem of Brooks Jensen and Josh Briggs and the newly formed duo of Hank Walker and Tank Ledger to become Gallus' next opponents. Wolfgang and Mark Coffey have been the NXT Tag Team Champions since February, and their last title defense was against the Creed brothers on May 28 at NXT Battleground. Enofe and Blade will get their title shot on next week's episode of NXT. It will be the second part of the 2-week Gold Rush special. Just last Tuesday on the June 13 episode of NXT, the two faced each other in singles action. Blade got the win over his tag team partner with a roll-up. The two have teamed together on and off for a while. They were part of the men's 2022 Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic tournament, making it to the semi-finals. One of the last names that Enofe and Blade received a shot at the NXT Tag Team Championships was back on the October 25th, 2022 episode of NXT, where they faced then champions Pretty Deadly. Of course, Pretty Deadly set the challenge for the WWE Undisputed Tag Team Championships on an upcoming episode of SmackDown. Now, it wasn't the only title match last night because the NXT North American Championship was on the line. And in the opening match of last night's first of two special episodes, NXT Gold Rush, the NXT North American Championship was on the line. Champion Wesley defended his NXT North American Championship against Tyler Bate, with main roster free agent Mustafa Ali serving as the special guest referee. The match was certainly a tale of an interesting referee, as Mustafa Ali proved to be a powerful asset in the match. With Ali smirking throughout, Booker T described the situation as a conundrum, as no one quite knew which way Mustafa Ali was going throughout the match, with a little bit of a fast and slow counts on pinfalls, as well as a notably behind count-out, only starting his official count well after the NXT crowd. With both men outside the ring, there seemed to be shenanigans afoot. After a top rope crash landing for Bate and Lee, instead of counting out Lee, Ali went to the outside and slapped him around, seemingly in a pep talk manner. Back in the ring, he also attempted to give Bate rousing words, although he ended up nearly in the path of Lee, who sought to end the match. Ali's apparent attempt to motivate Bate actually ended up costing him the match, as the distraction allowed Wesley to pick up the win. Lee was able to hit a cardiac kit on Bate, and Ali countered the pinfall for Lee to retain his NXT North American Championship. After the match, Ali celebrated with both Lee and Bate, who gave him some sideways glances, and the question is, what are Mustafa Ali's true intentions? Of course, we'll have to stay tuned to see how the storyline plays out as well. Where do you think this storyline is going, and could Mustafa Ali be a future NXT North American champion? We'll have to wait and see. Now, let's go back to the main roster and talk about the undisputed WWE Tag Team Championships. Of course, this week's episode of Monday Night Raw featured the return of Tommaso Ciampa, with him wrestling for the first time since September against The Miz on the show. Ciampa's return took place in Cleveland, the hometown of his former DIY tag team partner Johnny Gargano, who was notably absent from the show. Despite not appearing on the show, Gargano was present backstage, and Ciampa's return to the company seemingly has big implications for his future. Per WRKD Wrestling, following Ciampa's return, there are still plans in the works for DIY to be reformed on the main roster. In addition, the reunion of DIY is set to lead to a feud with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn for the undisputed WWE Tag Team Championships. Owens and Zayn are set to defend their titles against Pretty Deadly on the SmackDown in London next Friday, the day before Money in the Bank. So, we could be seeing, I guess, DIY challenging Zayn and Owens in the future for the titles on the main roster. Now, on NXT, next week we're going to be getting more title action, of course. A new match has been added to next week's episode of NXT, as Nathan Frazer will defend the NXT Heritage Cup against Dragon Lee. The match was set during a backstage segment on this past Tuesday's episode of NXT, where Frazer made the match because he felt that he owed it to Lee, since Lee helped him against the newly created Meta 4 stable consisting of Noam Dar, Oro Mensah, Jakara Jackson, and Lash Legend. Next week's match, which will take place during week 2 of the NXT Special Gold Rush, will be the first time that Frazer will defend the Heritage Cup. Frazer became the champion on the June 13 episode of NXT when he defeated Mensah, who was the replacement for Dar. It's also worth noting that Lee made his televised in-ring debut against the aforementioned Nathan Frazer. Week 2 of Gold Rush includes several other top title matches, including Carmelo Hayes defending the NXT Championship against Baron Corbin, NXT Women's Champion Tiffany Stratton putting her title on the line against Thea Hale, And Gallus, the duo of Mark Coffey and Wolfgang, defending the NXT tag team titles against Idris Enofe and Malik Blade. As I mentioned, Enofe and Blade became #1 contenders last night. The only one non-title match for that card is former Toxic Attraction member Gigi Dolan facing off against Kiana James. So we're going to be getting a stacked show certainly next week. Finally, a bit of an update when it comes to Dakota Kai and her recovery from her recent injury. A month out from her ACL surgery, Dakota Kai provided a positive update on her health. As revealed on Twitter, Kai is officially out of her straight leg brace and can once again roam around in sweatpants and with holes in the knees. Per a subsequent video posted to her TikTok, Kai has been free of her brace since last week. While the timetable for Kai's injury recovery has yet to be disclosed, Shayna Baszler recently shared some more good news. Dakota's leg is doing well. She's way ahead of schedule, Baszler said in a Twitch stream last Friday. Kai has been out of action since she sustained a torn ACL on the May 12 edition of SmackDown. Kai teamed up with Bayley that night to challenge Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez for the Women's Tag Team Championships. Unfortunately, that contest produced not one but two serious injuries. After Morgan suffered a shoulder injury about midway through the match, Kai apparently tried her best to protect Morgan as she and Bayley double teamed her in the corner. As Kai leaped off the top turnbuckle to nail Morgan with a face full of knees though, the landing resulted in a notable yelp of pain from Kai. It was later revealed that Kai had injured her knee executing that move. While Kai remains out of action, her Damage Control stablemates pivot their attention towards the upcoming Money in the Bank event. Bayley and Io Sky have both qualified for the Women's Money in the Bank ladder match, but after Shotzi laid down the challenge to the role model, Bayley will now put her shot on the line against Shotzi on SmackDown this week. So there you go, guys. It's the latest WWE news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right hand corner. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll speak for you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.